We want to respect your time. We're going to start on time. We're going to end on time. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here this morning. We're really excited to talk with you all about lesson planning for distance learning. This is the third module in a series of 5. We appreciate that you're here. We've got some an exciting undertaking that's coming up here, and we want to try and prepare for it. And you know, we think one of the best ways to prepare for something is to make a plan. So we're going to plan for some awesome lessons that are going to be taking place in the upcoming weeks and months. So as we begin, we're just going to talk about Zoom norms, just how we're going to use our tool in order to communicate with each other. First off, as we do in so many meetings nowadays, when we're not talking, we're going to mute our mics. You'll notice the mute button in the lower left-hand corner. So we can be in constant communication. We're going to use the chat window. Don't worry, we think we can get back to you all pretty quickly. First off, there are 27 people, which seems like a lot, but it is 1/10 of what we had last week. So this is a small group. This is cozy right now. There's actually 3 of us here who are going to be communicating with you. My name is Steve. I'm the Educational Technology and Engineering Design Coordinator. I run the Fab Lab here at the San Joaquin County Office of Ed. And Lisa?
Hi, Steve. Yeah, I'm Lisa Gilmore. I work here in the STEM department, San Joaquin County, and I am the coordinator for our outdoor residential camp, Jones Gulch.
And Kirk.
Hi, I'm Kirk Brown. I'm the Director of STEM Programs at San Joaquin County Office, and we're happy to have you here.
All right. So thank you, everyone, for being here. One of the ways you can get our attention, if we don't notice in the chat immediately, there is a raise hand feature. If you hit participants and then that little hand icon there. And if you would, please go ahead and change your name. You can do that, again, by getting to participants and then clicking on that drop-down menu, the more right there, and you can type in your name and your grade level and your district, because I know some teachers are getting reimbursed for this time by their district. All right, great. So we've introduced ourselves. We would love it if you all would be willing to introduce yourselves. We want to get to know you. The way we're going to do this is by using a tool, a tech tool called a Jamboard. I think right now it's one of my favorites, but I think I always just like whatever is the latest thing that I'm learning. Anyway, so Jamboard is a pretty free-form collaboration tool. I really like it in use collaboratively with adults. It can also work really well to give an individual Jamboard to students. Anyway, it allows you to put Post-its and pictures to draw on it. It's a way that we're going to kind of introduce ourselves to each other. You'll notice we've already started filling in the Jamboard there. By the way, the way you can get to this Jamboard is by going to the short link, bit.ly/Jamboard8. Actually, Lisa, I switched it up this morning, so we had a clean Jamboard. I'm sorry. Thank you for putting that in the chat. So we're using that bit.ly there, Jamboard 8-4. So that's today's Jamboard. You'll notice we've already put some things in there. Just we're sharing our favorite quarantine activity, what you've enjoyed this past. On the link, and see if it'll take us right there. Let's see as people add. Well, someone's doing yoga. That's great. Okay, and I see a lot of people are joining. We've got 11 of us right now on the Jamboard. See, Lisa has shared she's learning about tiny homes. I think those tiny homes are awesome. I see a picture of a family, so I'm guessing someone's going to tell us they've been spending a lot of time with family, and that's great. Dog walking, painting. Well, that is cool. I feel like a lot of people are gaining these quarantine skills, you know, like a skill that you didn't have before this all occurred. And now you get to leave with two things, that skill and maybe a couple of extra pounds. I know, I know that's certainly the case for me. So, you know. Oh, that's exciting. Your family grew. That is great. Cooking new gourmet foods, exercising. Awesome. Thank you all for sharing. Zoom wine meetings with friends. That is more exciting than any of the meetings I have had on Zoom so far. That's great. Okay. Okay. Thank you all for sharing. This is awesome. Great way to start things out. Thank you for letting us know about what you've been enjoying over the last few months. That's wonderful. All right. So I'm gonna get back to it. All right. So as we're starting, we have a few norms. We want to make sure that everyone is able to engage, that we're all able to get the most out of this. So we're all going to engage as learners. I know that I've been learning a lot over the past, we've been doing this about a week and a half, and really we've been preparing for it for a while before that. And it's been this huge effort through all of Ed Services. We got a chance to work with the math department and language and literacy. And I feel like I've learned a lot from everyone. It's been a great experience. So, you know, we're lifelong learners and we want to learn today as well. We want to honor the experiences of others. We have a lot of teaching experience here in the room, and we want to honor that. We want to own our intentions and their impact. We want to let everyone have their own aha moment, reach their own conclusion as we all, you know, introspect about our practice today. We want to make space for others' contributions, and we want to use our technology appropriately. All right, so I referred to this, but just to clarify, this is the third of a 5-part series on distance learning. Number 1 was on essential skills. 2 was on model lessons for virtual and blended learning. 3, lesson planning for virtual and blended learning. That's today, that's right now. We have module 4 on unfinished learning and learning loss. And 5 is designated ELD in a virtual setting. And below that, you'll notice we have another bit.ly site. It is https://bit.ly/SJCOE distance. That's already been in the chat. I should bring the chat window up. I'm assuming it's showing up in the chat right now as I'm speaking. Yep, there we go. Thank you so much. It has not only the resources that we're going to be referring to today, but it also has previous recordings from all of these sessions. So it's a way, if you weren't able to make it to all of the others, or if we go over something quickly, you want to refer back to it, or, you know, if you just want to share it out to a friend or a colleague, it's there. So, you know, please bookmark it and make use of it. We're actually planning to put even more resources on it as time goes. Okay, we've got 2 goals that we're working on today. The first one is we want to reflect on issues related to the lesson planning for distance learning. So we're gonna kind of take a deep dive thinking about, you know, what it means to lesson plan for distance learning. And we also want to talk about the tools that we're going to use. So we're going to share best practices with using tech tools to instruct remotely. So I do want to point out, this is not a session on any specific tool. This is more about the best way that we can use tools in general in order to facilitate this distance learning, okay? If you are interested in specific tools, we're going to mention a little bit later that there is the SJCOE Tech Summit coming up on September 12th. That has a lot of specific tools, but right now we're talking about how we can use tools in general. We will be mentioning a lot of tools, but not going deep into any one specifically. All right, so we just watched that video. I really enjoy that video. I like the tagline, "What's a computer?" And it's kind of this deeper question of like, what is the technology that we use? Let me explain what I mean. When I started using computers at school, it was the 80s, and we went to the computer lab, and they were also Apple computers, and they had black screens and green text on them. And our lesson was playing a game in which we, oh, am I quieter? Make sure that my volume is up full. Yeah, it was a black screen, green text, and we played a game in which we learned about the trek across the U.S. To Oregon, and then I died of dysentery. We also did a little bit of word processing, and that was it. That was what the technology was able to do. And at this point, it's able to do so much more. And I don't want people to get lost on the fact that we're referring to Apple computers, because you know, the actions that you saw in the video, we can do them with pretty much any device you get. It could be a Chromebook, it could be a Surface tablet, whatever. There are so many apps, and we're going to talk about some of them, that all of these different activities you can facilitate whatever platform you're on. So this question that we have here, and we're gonna kind of go into breakout rooms, we're gonna talk about, is how does technology affect learning? So again, the question is, how does technology affect learning? All right, so if you would, or Lisa,
Are we good? Yep.
Are you ready for us to go into
We're ready. We're ready. So we're going to send you automatically into breakout rooms, and you get to meet some new friends. We're completely randomizing you, so you get to meet somebody across grade levels, across content, to talk about this question. So are you ready? We're going to have you in there about 7 minutes. So we'll see you back here in just a little bit.
So thank you all for talking in your breakout rooms. I really got to enjoy talking with my group. Would people be willing to put into a chat a couple of takeaways that you had from your conversations together? So Anna said that they discussed how they use technology to reinforce a taught skill. Dean, oh, hey, Dean, how are you doing? From Kimball High. He said students need help with tech.
Yeah, we mentioned how it really heightened the disparities. In our district, we have 70% of our families who don't have devices. And at elementary, they won't be receiving them till October.
Hi, Deborah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. It's a good point. We have a few more. Sarah said we shared that we used what we used in the classroom. Mary said we discussed that not all students have the same access to technology. For 21st century learning, all students need access. And Monica said we acknowledge that that our students are digital natives, but recognize that they may not know how to use tech for educational purposes. They need guidance from teachers to learn how to do that. And those are all great points. Thank you, everybody, for all of that. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the TPAC model. We have a couple of models that we kind of want to talk about as we're tackling this concept of how do we make these distance learning lessons. So the TPAC model says that we have 3 different kind of buckets of knowledge that we access as we teach. The first, the most obvious, is obviously content knowledge, right? Like I used to teach math and science, and well, before I did that, I had taken a lot of math classes, right? So I knew how to find the integral of an equation, et cetera, et cetera. We all have that content knowledge, those facts that we know that allow us to be able to teach. We also have our pedagogical knowledge. So it's not just about knowing the facts, it's also about knowing how to teach. So right there, that's another bucket of knowledge. But we also have this third bucket of knowledge that we might not have needed as much before, our technological knowledge. Because there's always some level of technology that we're using in the classroom. I remember when I was in elementary school, we had the chalkboard. And then when I got to about junior high, they were like, we can't have all this dust around the one computer that's in the room. We're switching to whiteboards and so on and so forth. So that, like, when I was teaching, I learned how to use the Ditto machine, and it smelled like paint thinner because it worked based on paint thinner, and I haven't seen one of those in more than a decade. So the technology changes. Well, we also have some overlap between that. That's why we're using this Venn diagram. So between content and pedagogy, we have our pedagogical content knowledge. So when you took credentialing, that might have been your methods class. So I had classes I took that were just on teaching in general, Maslow's hierarchy and all that stuff. But there was also specifically math teaching classes. And, all of us math teachers got together and discussed specific skills for teaching math. Like at the time, it was things like how to make the best worksheet that kind of helps students to unlock their understanding and challenge the way that they were building their knowledge of math. And you have specifics to teaching your subject. They're different than someone else uses for teaching their subject. We have two other overlaps. We have our technological content knowledge, the way that we use technology to access a subject. For instance, if I'm a math teacher, it might be how to use a graphing calculator. If I'm a science teacher, it might be how we use a microscope. And we also have our technological pedagogical knowledge. And that might be nowadays how we use Google Slides or PowerPoint or Zoom in order to teach. So we bring this up because it is vital as we are designing our lessons that we keep mindful of all three of these knowledges. What we want to be is right here, because before we could kind of make a pretty good lesson right in here. But there's no way that we can communicate with students anymore without technology. And so we've got to think about the way that we use technology in order to communicate with the kids. So we need to be mindful of these three legs of this stool, okay? That brings us to another concept called the Sammer model. So the Sammer model says, well, there are different ways in which we use technology to implement a lesson. The first one is a substitution. Let me explain what I mean by a substitution. We all have worksheets. I don't mean to pick on worksheets, but they're there. Everyone's worked with one at one point. If I have, say, Microsoft Teams, what I could do is just substitute the technology of a worksheet by saying, well, I have my old worksheet. I'm taking it out of my giant binder. I'm going to take a photo of it with my phone, turn that into a PDF, mail it to the kids. The kids print it out. They complete it. They take a photo of what they did. They mail it back. That is a direct substitution. Instead of getting a worksheet, they got a PDF. But the actions that they carried out were really not any different. Now, we could go up a step to an augmentation. An augmentation might be saying, okay, well, I'm going to use this tool, but I'm also going to throw in like a link to a web page that has some definitions so that they have some vocabulary to help them unlock that worksheet. And so we've augmented, we've slightly improved. We've used our technology to improve it a little bit. Now, we don't want to say that augmentations and substitutions are bad, but we don't want to be stuck down here on the bottom two steps, because it's not really using the technology to help us much. It's just there. What we want to be able to do is get up to the point of redefinition. That's in this transformational zone. We want to be able to say, you know what? Yes, I could do a worksheet, but while we're learning about this subject, what I could do is I could give the kids different resources, maybe videos, encyclopedia articles. It could be a virtual reality video, whatever. We can give them lots of resources. I can say, you know what, I don't just want you to write out a response. Maybe you're going to write a little bit of a response and you're going to videotape yourself explaining something. Maybe you can make a little animation. And you know what? Everything is connected. So we're going to have you work with your group, and your group can share their information with another group. And so maybe we have an entire region that we're covering. Each group does a different part of that region, and you link between other groups, referring to what they did, saying how those two regions interact with each other, maybe trade, war, whatever. What I'm saying is that we can redefine our lesson and do things that could not have been done without the technology. Okay, and we want to be able to get to that redefined lesson. And the only way that we can do that is if we use all three of our knowledges, our knowledge buckets, being at that center there. Our technology, pedagogy, and content knowledge allows us to have that redefined lesson. All right. Okay, so we have two other terms that we want to talk about, namely synchronous and asynchronous. I saw people already mentioning that in the chat. Thank you, Natalie. So synchronous is like what we're doing right here. We are all together at 8:30 in the morning, learning about lesson planning, right? Asynchronous might be if you all were to go back to our website and watch one of the other videos and do some of the activities there. That would be on your own time, apart from the rest of the group. So we have this question, which I would appreciate a little bit of feedback. When students are in breakout rooms, do we consider that to be synchronous or asynchronous? If you put that in the chat, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, I like that people are kind of working it through together. We're seeing some different responses, and that's awesome. We can have an asynchronous aspect of our synchronous work, and that's okay. We can kind of play with the way that we define things. So we have kind of 5 points that we want to focus on today. The first one is that we want to see ourselves as experienced designers. We don't want to just be giving the kids the information. I guess I'm saying, I don't want to be like that video on YouTube, just telling them, this happened, here you go. What we want to do is create an experience in which students have learning opportunities, something that engages them and challenges them. And the way that we're going to go about doing that is to create a visual storyboard, right? We're going to kind of plan out the way in which the students are going to interact with the technology and the content in order to create this experience. As we do that, we're going to be very mindful of our learning goals. We want to determine the role of our desired learning process, and based on the learning processes that the kids are going to go through, we're going to choose the best tools, okay? And I'm going to point out a distinction there. We're not going to say, hey, there are so many tools, I should totally use this new tool, I heard about it, let's see what we can do. No, what we're going to do is we're going to say, well, we want the kids to get from here to here. We've got these different things that they need to be able to do in order to get there. What tool allows me to facilitate this specific process? And we're going to kind of give you some tools to help with that. All right, so I'm going to point out, we're not going to talk about the way that you write the lesson plan. You are all teachers. You have dealt with lesson planning. I know when I started teaching, it was the 2-column. teacher does, student does. I think over the last 8 years or so, it's been mostly 5E, and there are PBL, and there's different formats. You all know how to write a lesson plan, so we're not gonna go over like this is how you write a lesson plan. It's more about what we're going to be thinking as we design our lessons for this new method. So we're gonna talk through some example lesson plans today. Let's get started. We're lesson planning, and this is a version just for our online crowd. Where are we going? We want to think about our lesson first on a macro scale, large, and then we're going to kind of zero in. So here's kind of an example of a chapter overview. Now, we got example lessons and student work from Jarrett Haskett. He is our fourth member of the team. He's a teacher at River Islands and has been instrumental in this lesson. We took out some of his actual examples just so we had something to put online that was not, that didn't have any ties to copyright. So here's a chapter overview, but that's not the real chapter overview. Here we do have Jarrett's actual lesson plan, looking at a week. So notice we started out big with an entire chapter. Now we're zooming in to about a week. I do want to point out one of the best things, well, not a best thing that Jarrett did, but a great thing that Jarrett did, was he collaborated between him and Ron Bilo, they're both teachers at River Islands Technology Academy. And I want to encourage people that they really should find a thought partner to help them to lesson plan. There is so much change that you are facilitating and navigating. It's great to have someone to help you think. I mean, there's always a value in having collaboration, but especially now. And while there are so many things that have become more difficult during this time, and ways that we are apart, there are ways that we have become better at being together. So if you happen to have been a teacher who was teaching the only section of your class, or you were the only math teacher for that grade at your school, well, now it's not that hard to talk with and work with a teacher across town, or for that matter, across the country. So please reach out, find someone to help you plan, and you both benefit from that. Now, I do want to point out right here, we have Jarrett's plan. Jarrett and Ron worked together. Notice they made this a hyperdoc so that they could get to each other's slides, making it easier for them to collaborate. Also, as you're looking at this, you'll notice they use different tools, but not always different tools as they plan throughout the week. So we start off with Google Slides, and actually for presentations, he's using Google Slides throughout the week. That's great, why not? But he also has the students to do different activities. So on Tuesday, he has students to annotate an activity using Google Draw. And then he does assessment on Wednesday with quizzes. So he's using different tools to facilitate the lesson activity that he wants to occur. Now that he's got the whole week, we could move into an individual lesson. Now, this again isn't the actual lesson, but he'd have, information that he's presenting, example work for the kids on an individual days or couple days slides. So again, we're starting big with our chapter overview and getting down to the individual lesson view. All right, so it's a chance to talk with each other again. If you would, our question is, what was your experience with synchronous and asynchronous learning? And was it ideal? So we're gonna go back to our breakout rooms. Lisa,
Hi.
Are
Yep.
you ready to go?
We are ready to go. I just want to kind of give you a little heads up for this breakout room. We're going to give you 10 minutes. And part of that 10 minutes is also talking with your breakout room and kind of making sure you get a stretch break in there. Because we've been going for about 45 minutes now. And so it's good time to get up and stretch. And so we're going to have 10 minutes for this, but we're giving you permission to pause as a group, let somebody run to the bathroom if they need to, take care of your biological needs at this point too. So we'll send you off on your way and have fun.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Thanks for chatting in your groups. So I guess I want to give us another big idea that our synchronous time is precious. We only have so much of it. Even as we're probably experiencing right now, we're like, oh, how much longer am I going to be sitting here in front of the Zoom camera? There's only so much time that we can use synchronously. That synchronous time is precious. And we want to get the most out of it that we can. And in order to do that, we're going to be really creative with our asynchronous time, coming up with new experiences for the kids asynchronously. And that way, we can really maximize the use, our efficiency during our synchronous time. All right. So how can we use our synchronous and asynchronous time? Could you all do me a favor and respond in the chat? What are ways that we can use our synchronous and asynchronous time? Deborah, that's a cool point. I haven't heard that view of something like a flip grid, that it gives you the feeling of being together even though it's asynchronous. That's cool. Thank you. Synchronous for interaction and support, using synchronous time to get to know the students, to answer questions. As a music teacher, students can create small music groups. Oh, that's cool. I see Jennifer said that asynchronous can be used for reading short selections and skills practices. I see an answer, using the synchronous time for direct instruction and setting up for asynchronous time. That way the students can understand what is expected and what they need to do to finish the class time. And Chandra said we can use synchronous time to get that face-to-face time, providing SEL for social emotional learning, and direct instruction, asynchronous for collaboration, exploring, and creating. Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for all of those responses. So now that we've talked about what we want to do with our asynchronous and synchronous time, let's think about what tools we can use in order to facilitate that. So what tools are useful to allow you to teach synchronously and asynchronously? So we just talked about our actions. Let's talk about the tools that we can use to unlock that. Okay, I love that I get to meet with so many teachers over the last couple of weeks, because I have heard of some stuff that I like. Epic and Moat, did not know about those. That I'm going to have to Google that after this meeting. And Freckle, another one I didn't know. Okay, Khan Academy, Go Noodle, Kahoot. See Ed Puzzle. So many tools. Moby Max, Zern. Okay. Okay, thank you, Mary, for explaining. Epic is awesome to differentiate. It has videos, books, and it's all leveled. Cool. All right, thank you, everybody. All right, so we have so many tools that we can be using. I know some of you are from Tracy and Manteca, so you got Teams and you got your OneNote. I know we have some from Lincoln. I'm sure we've got some from Stockton and around. We have one individual from Mark Twain, so that's all Google. So we've got good old Google Classroom and Jamboard, which we experienced earlier, and we have Google Drawings. Those are all Google products. Then we got some for other, but they don't fit into either category. So if you are elementary, you might be using Seesaw, and some teachers are using Nearpod. I see Chandra mentioned Nearpod. So we've got so many tools, and the thing is not to use all the tools, it's more that we want to know that they're there in order to access them for our objectives. So we have two different tools that we want to share with you. They are on our website. Again, that bit.ly/SJCOE distance is the site that we're using. And you'll notice near the bottom of the page, there are links to both of these resources. One is from CaitlinTucker.com, and the other one is from OpenSciEd. They're both kind of organizational tools. So this first one, we look at a building block. You know, research, discussion, exploration, different things that we want the kids to experience. It lists our objective, like if we're discussing, we want the kids to engage in academic conversations about a text or a video, a topic or a problem. And right here, we've got the different tools that we can use in order to facilitate that. So Google Meet or Zoom, which we're using right now, Teams, Flipgrid, Seesaw. We also have our second tool here from OpenSciEd, and it's essentially the same type of tool. We have our routine, right? All of these ones in the screenshot are anchoring phenomenon, but there's a ton of them. And then we have subroutines, like parts of that anchoring phenomenon, like, for instance, identifying potential investigations or identifying student experience and knowledge. Well, we've got three different tools here: Flipgrid, Padlet, Pinup, all of which can be used for that sub-process. So we're not gonna, because we're an hour in and we still have a lot to go over. So Monica, in response to your question, Lisa put in the chat links to those two sites. These specific documents, there are links to them on this website here, the bit.ly/SJCOE distance, which is in the chat. All right. So again, we have some help from our invisible partner, Jarrett Haskett. Let's listen to Jarrett explain what his students did.
And now let's take a look at a sample that came out of the Desmos activities. Thank you, Debbie Williams, for introducing us to this at River Islands, because these Desmos activities are outstanding. Now, if you look at the little orange box on the screen, that's actually highlighting one of the slides in a slideshow of an already created activity. Now, you can create your own, but there are some really rich activities that are already there. And the orange box restricts the students to only be able to access what you've highlighted. You can turn that on or off. That's called pacing. It's really cool. And it really helps with designing that experience for your learners. It helps you limit them to where you want them to be. If you don't want them toggling back and forth through all the slides, And if you want them to, say, only be able to access the beginning of the lesson in class for that synchronous time, and then maybe do the reflective or extension pieces after class as that asynchronous time. And then, just one of those good teacher moves would be to take those samples, those reflections, those extension questions, and preview them before the next class starts. Pull out those samples that you want to highlight, and then share your screen perhaps, and let the students see those samples again, so that you can choose whether you want them to have that freedom to go back in and revise or not. And that just really deepens that learning when they're able to realize by looking at another person's work if they want to make some changes to their own. Did they make a discovery here? Did they realize they made a mistake and then they learn from that mistake? So some really powerful things, of course, can come from seeing that, just like we saw with sharing and Go Formative. And again, we can do the same thing really with anything, but allowing that student discourse to take place when they are able to see a highlighted student sample. Right here, you can see that they all the students are showing up. This is the teacher view, and I would share that with the anonymized feature. You can choose to do it anonymized or not. So there is that protection of their privacy. But yeah, some really cool features in this one, and it's definitely worth a shot for those upper grade levels.
Thank you, Jarrett. Okay, not to leave out elementary. Dina Brassfield, who is also a teacher at River Islands, was kind enough to share some of her students' work with us. So right here, she used Seesaw, and you'll notice that she's using it for language arts. Here we have students working with regular verb tense, contractions. Notice they're pasting words together to explain what your is, you are. She had students work on their reading. The tool allowed kids to record themselves reading a passage so that she could then hear how they sounded as they were working on literacy. We also have the students trying their handwriting on the tool. Lastly, we have them working out their math. So kind of in the same way that the younger kids were showing their understanding of math, these second graders are showing a concept like 4 + 4 + 4 is 12, with 3 rows of 4 in stickers or in drawings. Okay, so in order to do all this, trust is needed. And Lisa is an expert on social emotional learning, so she's gonna explain that.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. We one of the things we were really thinking about as we think about this transition to starting the school year off with distance learning is to think about the whole child, right? And so I put the competencies for social emotional learning in the chat box just to kind of refresh your memory on them. But all of it surrounds trust. And when the distance learning started in spring, you already knew your kids. You already had some routine set. You already had that. Now you're starting a school year with kids you don't know. And they don't know you. So you're going to have to start to think about and build that trust. So when you're doing synchronous learning, they're going to be willing to learn. We know as adults too, we have a harder time learning if we don't trust the person we're trying to learn from. And so kids are the same way. They need to feel that. They need to think about who this person is. And so as we shift, Steve, into these, breakout rooms, into thinking about something, even the first thing that you can do for trust building is to think about how you're allowing your students to be seen, literally be seen in the classroom. For some kids, it's going to be really hard. They don't want to show their house. They don't want people to hear them. For others, they're going to be fine with that. And so some districts have set down some guidelines as to what to do through the Microsoft Teams. We're also suggesting, if your district hasn't thought of it, that you should thought of. So just looking at our picture here, There's our director, Kirk, kind of showing you a picture. He's kind of showing himself, but not all the way. So that's kind of a way to build trust with them. What we want you to do really quick in the chat box is throw in some ideas. What do you plan on doing to build trust with your kiddos as you're starting school? And as you're kind of putting that in there, I'll kind of think about, for example, I used to make sure I learned every single kid's name within the first 2 days of school. I taught middle school, so I had somewhere between 120 and 150 students every year. That was my goal, to let them know that I knew who they were and knew what their name was, and then learn something about them within those first 2 days. So here's some other great ideas. Thank you, Dana. Virtual backgrounds, definitely a good way to let them build some trust. Which means, again, we're going to have to teach them maybe how to use those and how to do that. Flipgrid. Flipgrid's a great way to let kids introduce themselves and to do some of that. I know here in our office, we've even used it to celebrate birthdays, where everybody sang a birthday song because we couldn't celebrate in person. The reason why we included this particular topic of social emotional learning in the lesson planning session is because you're going to need to be more intentional about it. It's much easier when you're in the classroom to see that somebody might be upset, or to see that from their body language that something is wrong. On camera, it's going to be much harder. So think about intentionally building in some ways that you can build trust for your kids as you start to move forward. Steve? So we're not going to go into breakout rooms quite this moment. We're going to just talk for a few minutes. There's 3 main practices for social emotional learning that is being recommended, and I'm going to kind of put two resources here in the chat box. There's these 3 signature practices here for social emotional learning. Remember, in your classroom, you spent the first week teaching the kids the ritual of your classroom. Here's what the pencil sharpener is. Here's what you do when you're going to go to the bathroom, right? Those morning rituals, or what to do when you come into class. You're going to need to do that the same. Kids need to feel comfortable with coming into your classroom, even if it's virtual. So thinking about cool videos, or where your opener is going to be. You know, I used to start my class with music every year, so kids could come into the classroom with music playing, so they could still be chatting, and then we would start the class, right? All of those things to build trust for those kids. You also need to think about including engaging activities. Those think, pair, shares, breakout rooms. One of the things I really like is brain breaks. We have learned that 2 hours on Zoom is exhausting, even for adults. And so what did we do today in the session to help you with that? We made sure you took a stretch break. We don't know if you really did because you're not on camera with us, but we reinforced the fact that go take a stretch break, and then we reminded you of that, right? So those are some things that you can do as the teacher as well. Give kids opportunities to have those breaks. And then to think about how to close the day, right? Give them optimistic things. Have them think about what they learned. Give them more time for reflection, so that when they move into their asynchronous learning, they have something to do when they go in there and they feel comfortable doing it. Oh, surveys are great. That's a good thing too, thinking about surveys. Thank you for putting that in there with your live sessions. So we're going to have you go into breakout rooms really quickly because you guys know each other now. So we're going to have about 5 minutes in breakout rooms, and we want you to share out and think about what are some things that you're going to do to take time to connect with your students to build that trust. Okay, so we're going to see you back here in about 5 minutes. Thank you so much. Have fun talking with your friends. Hi, everybody. Looks like we're almost all back. Thank you. While you were in the breakout room, I had a chance to go back and look at some of the ideas that you had put in the chat box. And with that being said, I want to make sure everybody remembers that you can save this chat because there's so many great ideas in here. So if you don't know how to save the chat, when you're in the chat box, on the bottom right-hand corner, there's those 3 little horizontal dots. And when you click on that, it's going to let you save the chat that you can then print out, or it saves it as a PDF and you can keep it. So if you want to capture any of these great ideas, please go ahead and do that. there's some great things that you've put here. For example, I think it was Mary who said that she has them go try and find a red, like a red triangle. One of the things also with social emotional learning is like to do our check-in. So when we did our check-in today, we were checking how you were doing and we had you use Jamboard. Another good way to do a check-in is to send kids in the house to go find something that kind of expresses how they're feeling today, right? It might be a pillow, like I need to take a nap still, right? Whatever it could be. Those are definitely ways to build those relationships with those kids. Steve, can we go ahead and go back to the slides? So, okay, go ahead and go to the next. Thank you. Thank you so much. So we're kind of coming toward the end of our session here. Some things we want to remind you of, though, is kind of think about these big picture ideas again. You're trying to design this experience for them, right? You're trying to make something engaging that they're going to want to be able to participate in. And think about that visual storyboard. And there's nothing wrong with sharing that with them, right? Share that storyboard with them. That helps build confidence and trust for what they're going to be there, and it makes them a part of your class. If they're a part of something, they're going to be more engaged. And then thinking about your learning goals and what tools you have to do that. So remember, one of the competencies for social emotional learning is that kids know how to do self-management and kids know self-awareness. Well, they can learn that by you helping set that. So if you already know that you're not good at a particular tool, let them know that, hey, you know what, I'm not really good at this tool. Does somebody else know how to use this tool? Can somebody else help mentor me? And when you do that, they will trust you more because you are proving to them that you are willing to learn. And if you're willing to learn, they're going to be willing to learn. So those little things you can still bring into this digital world with this distance learning. So think about those tools and ask for help. That helps them with that whole child. It helps you teach, it helps them teach. And then be creative. Remember, and talk to them about it. They might have some really good ways of things that they want to do with asynchronous learning as well, right? So you can kind of help them with that and then how to use that, that synchronous time. And then don't forget about the trust. I was just looking at some other things that got put into the chat box. Still some great ideas coming in there. Thank you. Don't forget trust, right? Teach to the whole child, even when we're doing distance learning. Remember who they are, and then that will just make this process still enjoyable for them, still engaging, and they'll still be learning. So Steve? So as we kind of start to close this up, we're kind of closing up our session right now. It was not enough time to really talk about and dive deep into some tools. So we are so excited and so happy to have our 6th annual Tech Summit. Yay for everybody who's been a part of it before. Yay, yay, yay. 2 good pieces of information, actually kind of 3. 1, it's virtual. 2, it's free. And 3, we're going to still have some sponsors, and we're going to still have some fun things that you can walk away with as prizes. Steve, are we still needing some possible presenters?
Yeah, if anyone wants to present, please contact me. I'm S. Callahan at SJCOE.net. There are so many tools. There's definitely a chance to share something that you love, like Seesaw or whatever, with others, and I'm sure they would appreciate it because we're kind of all learning this stuff together. So if anyone's willing to be a presenter, we'd love that, and your colleagues would love it too. Thanks.
And I just put the link there in the chat box if you want to check that out while it's still fresh in your head. So, and then next slide. So when we do sessions like this, it is sometimes hard to fit in everybody's questions and answers. So not that they're not important, because they are important, but from a time sake point of view, what I'm doing is I added all of our emails in the chat box. Myself, Stephen, and Kirk. If you have a specific question for any of us, just email us. We're here to help you and to support you with any of this so that we can help all these kiddos. Okay. Moving on. We at San Joaquin County Office of Education would so much like to thank you for joining us this day, early in the day. This was put together by all of Educational Services. We've been collaborating all together. If your school or district need more information, they can contact Jess Clements. And the authors for this session were Kirk Brown, Steve Callahan, myself, and then Jarrett, who is showing us all his math lessons and sharing that. And, you know, thank you so much for attending. I'm going to put this survey here in the chat box so that you can give us some feedback. Oh, Kirk's already done it. Thank you, Kirk. We want to know what worked and what didn't, right? Those are both equally important to us, thinking about what else we can do to provide some help for you as you move forward in these unprecedented times. But we know you can do this. We have fabulous teachers in San Joaquin County and other counties who are also participating in this with us. So we know you can do this. As Steve said, though, remember, reach out to colleagues, right? We're not in this alone. We have realized that collaboration can look much different, and there's some positives to this in the sense that collaborate maybe with a teacher at a different grade level or at a different school, right? To help do this. Practice using this technology with your friends. I call it getting a partner in crime, somebody who can help you as you move forward with this. It's also helpful to think about. And then last but not least, just kind of, if you have any further help that you want in either language and literacy, math, or STEM, we have our directors who are here to help as well. As you move forward, there's going to be things that we find out that aren't working, and you can reach out to us and we can maybe help you with that. You guys are an inspiration. You are an inspiration. We know how much we missed our kiddos. So we're getting all to see kiddos again, just not in the way we had hoped, but don't ever forget that we know how hard you're working, and the kids are so excited to see you guys again. Steve, any last words, or Kirk, any last words?
Just thank you for all the work that you're doing. I know it's going to be a difficult task, but you are up to it, and please let us know if we can support you in any way. Thanks again.
We put the link up there to the distance learning module site, and module 3 is being re-uploaded, but it'll be there probably today. So all 5 modules are there, and all the resources for every session, even if you didn't get to those sessions or you would like to watch those that have been recorded, they're all there. Good luck this year. We're rooting for you.
Okay, everybody, so I'm going to, don't forget, you can save the chat if you want to. So I'll hold on just for another minute or two to give people a chance to save the chat, and then we will exit out in just a minute. And again, have fun, right? We normally like the start of the school year, so have fun with that still. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and click end. Okay, I'm gonna count 3, 2, 1, bye.